Hello everyone, my name is Samuel Duncan, and today I will be talking about superheroes within the media. During this presentation, I will be discussing the many different media outlets that superheroes have been present in, the difficult history of the comic book industry, the current state of the superhero genre in mass media, and I will be including some unique examples along the way. And just as a disclaimer, I am more of a DC Comics fan than a Marvel Comics fan, so expect many references to Batman and Superman within this presentation. So with that out of the way, let's get started. In the late 1930s and early 1940s, the world was introduced to a whole new concept within the media: superheroes. These larger-than-life characters provided unique and compelling stories that quickly attracted a large reading audience. During this time, print media was the primary innovating outlet for the genre. And since the idea of long-running storylines was still a foreign concept to the industry of the time, many comic creators kept full legal rights to each one of their respective characters, which is very different from the very bureaucratic system that many of the comic book organizations are involved with today. A few noteworthy examples of bold innovation of comic books includes Action Comics #1, which was the first appearance of Superman in 1938, and Detective Comics #27, which featured the first appearance of Batman in 1939, just 1 year apart from one another. As comic books began to rise in popularity, it did not take long to see the genre branch out into new media outlets like radio and television. The 1940s and 50s saw a rise in superhero television programming. I can personally say that one of my favorite examples was an old colored Superman cartoon that came out from the 1941. I really enjoyed that. One could say that the superhero genre at this time had entered the penetration stage of the media life cycle by expanding its horizons and exploring new territory within the media industry. Some great examples include the 1943 Batman theater serials, which not only featured the first live-action Batman on screen, who was played by then Lewis Wilson, but also was one of the very first instances of superheroes experimenting with cinema productions. And the very popular Adventures of Superman television series, which starred the late George Reeves as Superman. As time progressed into the latter half of the 20th century, printed comic book media began to face a slow, moderate decline over the next few following decades. This is directly linked to the loss of interest in print media across all genres when television systems began to become more mainstream. It was during this time that the comic book industry began to license the rights to their characters to television and movie producers in order to keep a steady flow of revenue. Superhero television and film had begun to replace printed comic books as the primary source of income for the industry. Two very famous examples include the 1960s Adam West Batman TV series and the 1978 Superman film, which starred the late Christopher Reeve as the Man of Steel. Now, it is an undisputed fact that the 1990s nearly killed comic book superheroes. Printed comic books were selling at an all-time low, and the industry took a serious hit. Comic producers had to make serious changes to their storylines and characters in order to stay in business. When Marvel Comics declared bankruptcy in 1996, the message was very clear. The industry had to adapt if they wanted to stay afloat. To quote Jonathan Last from Standard Magazine, "The contours of the industry have changed almost beyond recognition. In 1950, Marvel and DC together sold roughly 13 million comic books a month. In 1968, they put out 16 million a month. Since 1993, the overall sales trend has been inexorably downward. For January 2010, all American publishers combined sold a total of 5.63 million comics." One of my most personal favorite examples of the comics industry attempt to draw in more readers because of the rapid decline of sales was 1992's The Death of Superman, which received worldwide coverage as it was a pretty serious thing when the first and most famous superhero in all of comics died. Now, remember how I said that comic book companies began to license the rights to their characters and storylines to TV and movie companies due to financial struggle? Well, that trend would bring the superhero genre out of near extinction and into the realm of mainstream popularity. Today, superheroes are everywhere. They frequently star in television programs, films, and even large video game franchises. Some pretty popular examples include the Flash and Arrow TV shows on the CW, and as well as, the Avengers movies, Batman vs. Superman, things like that. These mass media outlets have even given rise to new generations of digital comic book readers, because superheroes have become so mainstream. Audiences want to discover the origins and printed adventures of their favorite superheroes. To get off script for a second, I can personally testify about this. I get into frequent conversations with some of my friends who aren't as avid comic book fans as I am, but I often will direct them to online sources where they can actually read traditional comic books through digital means, whether it be through an iPad or a computer screen, so they can catch up on some classic printed stories of their new favorite superhero characters. The superhero genre has most certainly reached a peak of fame and popularity. Time will only tell if it can maintain its current status in the media life cycle. It would come as no surprise to me if the genre started to see a slow and gradual decline yet again. I have heard from several different news outlets and sources, and from my own personal experience with friends and family, that many people are getting tired of constantly seeing superhero movies. They're kind of getting old of it. They're kind of getting tired of it, and to be quite honest, I can see their frustration. There is not a whole lot of originality when looking at these superhero films. Well, guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have all enjoyed, and please post some interesting questions for me down in the discussion post below. This is a pretty fun assignment. Thank you.